Hello, my name is Caroline Nettle, and this is the third video in Recovering from Addictions. And the subject that we're going to address today is called acceptance. And it is possibly going to be the hardest video for me to do because I still sometimes struggle with this concept. But when, as I said in a previous video, I got on the plane, I didn't know that I had a problem. And I think that's very much part and parcel of how you get to a point where you can recover from any issue that you're dealing with. So I am embarrassed to say this, but I used to go to the doctor smoking like a trooper with a really chronic lung infection or just really, really poorly, and he would be like, this happened to me on about 10 occasions. They were like, if you don't stop smoking, Caroline, you're going to die. I mean, it wasn't, I think it would be a good, you're going to die. And I would get outside and go, absolute idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and start smoking. And that's because at no level of my consciousness was I even thinking about death. I wanted to smoke. It stopped me feeling. And actually that's a little aside for you. Smoking is one of the very best ways you can use to not feel your feelings, which when my feelings were overwhelming, I couldn't in any way understand, comprehend or control them. Smoking was a really intelligent coping mechanism for me, which I took up really, really young, I remember. Because it made it go away for as long as the cigarette lasted, and clearly then it would come screaming back. But so that's what I wanted to say that for, was because I wanted to show you how little we know of ourselves when we're in compulsive behaviour, which is what addiction is. I had absolutely no clue whatsoever that I was an alcoholic, because in my mind, and this is denial again from the last video, in my mind alcoholics sat on a park bench with a grubby Mac on, drinking out of paper bags, and it would be $2.99 cider or whatever it was, cheap as chips. And I didn't drink like that. My drinking looked absolutely nothing like that. I was a high-functioning alcoholic who held down a very good job, lived in a nice house. I, drank in public. Yes, I did, but most of my drinking was done behind closed doors. And I genuinely had no idea that I had a problem. And it makes me laugh now because it's clear as day now. But at the time, if you'd have told me I was an alcoholic, I'd have been really rude back again. And they say that if you tell someone that they need to get help with their problem, like an alcoholic, say, oh, I think you're drinking too much, you'll probably get rage back. And the reason for the rage is the only way I know how to cope with life is to drink far too much. And yes, it makes me really, miserable and abusive and loud and knock things over all the time, etc., etc. I can't cope without it. So that's the essence of the rage. You're asking me to take away my coping mechanism. So I learnt very quickly in recovery it's not great to go around telling people their problems, because you have to be ready to hear it. And how I know that is in recovery, in the treatment centre, there was a lot of people who were a lot younger than me. I was in my 40s when I got sober, and Mummy and Daddy had put them in there, or their family had put them in there, or perhaps a partner or something, and it hadn't come from them. Whereas this came completely from myself, with a little bit of guidance from some really amazing people who cared about me. But it was me that made the decision that my life wasn't working and I needed to find out why. Still not sure I would have got on the plane if you'd have told me I had an alcohol problem, and I didn't know that by getting on the plane and getting into this treatment centre that I would be giving up alcohol. That's how brilliantly my denial was controlling my brain. But this video is about acceptance, and it was really challenging for me to accept that that was the name of my problem. There was other things I got straight away. I'm a compulsive overeater. Yes, I am. I'm codependent. Absolutely. But an alcoholic, it's not a label I wanted to carry, and that kind of hindered my recovery for a little bit. But now I really know that in order to heal in any way, you genuinely have to look at your problem head on, call it what it is, and accept that that is what you are dealing with. And acceptance has come to me in many, many different layers. So it's not as though I sort of accepted that I was an alcoholic and all my problems went away. No. As I went through, you know, quite a lot of therapy and really worked on this, layers and layers of acceptance came to me, as it were, unfolded over time. So sitting here today, I'm 12 years sober, which I'm really proud of. You know, I totally accept. At some stage, I just got really bored of dyeing my hair. And to me, it became, this is me lying. Like, it's not an honest version of myself. And that's one of the upsides of accepting who you are, is you get, let me keep it to me because I can't speak for anybody else, but I got very accepting of myself, warts and all. So about, I really can't remember, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I stopped dyeing my hair. I was expecting by now to be completely white, but here we are, with still quite a lot of dark there, so that's fantastic. But it just feels a more authentic version of who I am. And we do live in a society that completely tells us, especially women, what we should look like, you know, how old people aren't welcome, you have to be young and vibrant and healthy and sexy and fit. And I think we have taken this too far. And one of the things I wanted to talk about really in this video was about acceptance. And I read a story the other day in the news about a young lady who had saved up what must have been quite a lot of money to go to, and I can't remember the details, I'm sorry, but Turkey or somewhere, Hungary, I can't remember where it was she went, to have a buttock lift. And it went wrong, and unfortunately the young lady in question died. And to me, this is a very extreme example, so death, of how we can push our lack of acceptance of ourselves into a highly dangerous state. So imagine that it had worked and she'd come back and she had a different shaped bottom, which, you know, at the end of the, to me seems really silly, but I'm sure to her seemed really, really important. But then maybe her eyelids or her nose or her cheek or her breasts or whatever it is, there's always going to be something else, because essentially she's displaying or demonstrating to me a complete lack of self-acceptance, wanting to change myself externally, I'm guessing in order to please other people. And this just makes me so unbelievably sad. So acceptance for me is just learning to love yourself exactly as you are. You know, it would be totally pointless for me to want to be blonde and 21, let's say that. I'm dark haired and I have this face, and you know, I'm 52, and all of those things are part of my life, and I have this one body, and I think for the longest time I had, and I believe the term is body dysmorphia, so I didn't know that I had a body. There's a lot of things that happened in my childhood that had caused me to split off from my body, and yeah, that was a really a lot of acceptance and working hard to, you know, plant myself in this body this lifetime. And yeah, it's been a long journey, but now I'm really trying to be very grateful to this body. I'm 52. I know a lot of people that haven't made it to, you know, past 50. We're seeing lots of young actors, for example, being taken from us too soon by drugs and alcohol, car crashes. There's lots of people that don't get to this age, and you know, it's such a privilege. And it's this heart that's been beating for 52 years, and it's these lungs, and, you know, these ovaries, and these legs and arms, and every day now I really try to be thankful to this body that I didn't recognise for the longest time, because it's keeping me alive and helping me to walk forward. Another thing about acceptance is you really learn to be where you are with what you've got. I have just found out in the last year and a half that I want to do gardening. I want to grow superfoods and fruit and veg and herbs and salads to help to nourish other people and myself, obviously this body. And you know, I've moved up to Darlington because I lost everything in a fire on February the 12th, 2018. And it was a huge shock, and I really, really wanted to drink that night. But luckily I was with some people that really knew my story, and I'd love to say that I wouldn't have taken the drink, but I don't know that that's true. And so regardless of the fact that I have 12 years sobriety, on that particular night, due to the enormity of the feeling and the shock and everything, the thing that I wanted more than anything was a drink. And luckily that didn't happen, so I'm very, very pleased about that. And that's probably the first time in a decade that I've needed, and it's so visceral, I can't explain it. I'm so grateful that they took all the alcohol away and sat with me and listened to me and held me, and you know, during that major trauma. So anyway, after the shock of the fire, which I think I'm probably still in a little bit because I'm still not feeling 100% Caroline, which, you know, it gets better all the time, that's definitely true, but it was a huge shock. And it has taught me, and I'm so grateful for this, it has taught me that I can help people in shock. Now, I didn't really comprehend shock. I'm pretty sure I've been in PTSD most of my life, but yeah, shock was shown to me in that specific way, and I had a garden, and I can't express how grateful I am for that, because the garden helped me so much, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want to reach out to people with addictions or mental health problems or PTSD and say, come and work in the garden for the day. It's so healing. There's so many white papers explaining how you know, horticultural therapy is really good for you and can reduce your stress and help you with your self-confidence, and there's so many benefits for being outside in nature. So I'm starting this garden. I have nothing. I really do not have the finances or the infrastructure or anything like that, but I do have an enormous passion, and I know that it's going to come to me when I get going. So I'm up in Darlington. I've just moved my plants up, which I'm really grateful for, and I'm accepting exactly where I am, which is, you know, I don't have a network here, I don't have the funding in place, and it would be so easy. And I really, you know, I watch these gardening programs about these organisations that have these mammoth, absolutely enormous, you know, greenhouses that cost £30,000-40,000, you know. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something to aim for. Right now, today, I have what I have, and I'm going to work really hard to ensure that what I want to provide as a service to others happens, because I know how much it's going to help other people. So in real acceptance of where I am, and you know, the old me, I believe, would have been very judgmental and thought, poor me, and this is awful. And the new me, who is all about acceptance and accepting of who I am and where I'm at, is like, okay, this is what I've got. What skills can I bring to the table, and how do we get there? And an absolute belief that it's going to happen. So the purpose of this video was to talk about acceptance and how it is practically impossible to heal from any form of trauma or addiction or mental health issues without establishing that you have a problem to start with. And like I say, I was pretty reticent about the fact that I wasn't an alcoholic, and I do remember, oh, this is so funny. So when you start going to AA, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that did this. There was a lovely, lovely old gentleman next to me, and I just turned around to him, my very first meeting, and I said, how many of these do I have to come to till I get well? And he just smiled at me and laughed and said, you know, I think you'll probably have to come, you know, for the rest of your life, is what he said. And I couldn't hear that in those days because I didn't know the extent of my problems and the extent of my alcoholism and how I had used that as a coping mechanism for my life. Do I make perfect decisions now? No. I still make mistakes, but through mistakes, that's how we grow. So I want to leave this on a positive note. I think it's a little bit longer than perhaps the other ones, but this really is the key and the foundational element for me to being able to address your problems and move on for them. So if you would like some help understanding perhaps what it is your problem, or signpost to places that you can go to for the help that you need, then I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. I know for me that lots of the healing that happened to me was through spending 9 months in a secondary. So the first one is to stop the behaviour. So that's what happened when I went to Kentucky. And the second place I went to for healing was to help you learn to live without the behaviour, which was the hardest part for me. And I stayed in there for 9 months, and I'm not saying to anyone watching this video, in order to get well from alcoholism or whatever your ism is, you need to do it as much as me, but I absolutely needed that. And I went to AA for many years, and I had many years of therapy, and all of them have contributed to where I'm at today. And of course I can't forget that I am a body talk practitioner, and I had many body talk sessions which have all helped me to learn to love who I am exactly as I am. And it's such a blessing, I can't tell you. Is it easy? No. But it is possible, and it is very easy to do once you've accepted your problem and asked for help. So if you need help with any of those areas, please do get in touch. My website is spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk. You'll see there that I do body talk, which can help you with this, or we can do some spiritual counselling, which is very much, I do believe that many things like depression and anxiety are spiritual issues, so we can really help with that. So do get in touch, and I will do the next video on working through the issues. I think that's the subject that is going to bring a lot of help to a lot of people, so that's what I'm going to do. And I really hope this has been helpful, and do share it if there's anybody you can think of that may be in need of this. There are 2 other videos which you'll be able to watch as well, and there's going to be 2 more in this series. So thank you for watching, and I really hope this was useful. Lots of love to you.